The Pride Lands were restless, a tension vibrating through every blade of grass and every tree branch. The sun rose over the horizon, but its golden light seemed weak, filtered through a haze that carried a scent of smoke and fear. Kion stood atop Pride Rock, eyes scanning the horizon where shadows gathered unnaturally, curling like smoke across the plains. His heart thudded, not with hesitation, but with the weight of responsibility. This was no ordinary threat. This was a challenge that could shatter the circle of life itself. Behind him, the lion guard assembled silently. Fuli's tail flicked in impatience, muscles taut with readiness. Beshte stood solid, steady, unshakable, his massive frame a fortress against any assault. Bunga's grin was forced, a mask over a trembling awareness that this fight was unlike anything they had faced before. Ono circled overhead, feathers ruffling in the cold breeze, eyes sharp for danger that moved beyond sight. The first signs came from the far plains. Herds of animals moved erratically, fear driving them into unusual patterns. Predators hesitated before their prey, instinct faltering under something unseen. The ground itself seemed to shift subtly, small tremors running through the soil, warning of a force that obeyed no natural law. Kion felt the roar stir within him, restless, pulling at his courage and testing his leadership. He knew instinct alone would not save them. They would need strategy, unity, and above all, unwavering courage. A low growl rolled across the plains, unnatural in its depth and tone. Shadows stretched, twisting into shapes that were neither animal nor solid. They moved with purpose, coiling around the trees and rocks, forming corridors of fear. The lion guard moved forward together, silent as shadows themselves, understanding instinctively that hesitation would cost lives. Every step they took, the land seemed to respond, leaves trembling, the wind whispering warnings, animals freezing in place, unsure of what to do. The darkness ahead did not roar, did not attack immediately. It waited, patient and intelligent, like a predator testing its prey. Tenet stroke. From the shadows emerged forms that mimicked the Pride Zone, twisted and black, with eyes glowing red. They moved in perfect synchronization, attacking with a precision that chilled the guard. Fuli streaked forward, faster than the eye could follow, striking and weaving, her claws precise. Bunga bounced through them recklessly, confusing enemies with sheer unpredictability. Beshte barreled into the thickest clusters, scattering shadows as if they were leaves. Ono dove low, signaling openings in the ranks and calling warnings that cut through the chaos like wind through reeds. Kion's roar erupted then, golden and bright, pushing shadows back momentarily. It was not a victory, only a pause, a small breath before the next wave. As the battle raged, the true enemy revealed itself, a towering shadow creature, far larger than any known predator, its presence bending light and sound around it. Its roar was not merely heard, but felt, vibrating through the guard's bones. Each step it took scorched the earth beneath, turning grass to ash and leaving waterholes murky with black residue. Kion felt the weight of generations pressing on him, ancestors whispering of balance, of courage, of the duty to protect the Pride Lands at all costs. He knew that facing this enemy would require every skill, every ounce of courage, and every bond the guard had forged. The smaller shadows regrouped behind it, forming a wave that seemed endless. The lion guard could not hold them all. Retreat was not an option. Not if the Pride Lands were to survive. Kion looked to his friends, eyes locking with Fuli, Beshte, Bunga, and Ono. Unspoken understanding passed between them. They would fight together, not just as a team, but as a single force, a living barrier against extinction. The shadow beast raised its claw, and the earth shook. Kion felt the roar rise again, stronger, but now it was accompanied by the courage of his friends, their loyalty amplifying his strength. Together, they struck a coordinated surge that pushed back the darkness, not destroying it, but forcing it to pause. For a moment, the Pride Land seemed to hold its breath. Then the shadows hissed, recoiling, only to reform into new shapes, faster, more cunning, relentless. The battle had only just begun. Kion's chest heaved, sweat and ash covering his face, but determination burned brighter than ever. He knew instinct alone could not win this fight. It was more than speed, strength, or roar. It was strategy, courage, and the unbreakable bond of friends who refused to let the Pride Lands fall. Above them, the sky darkened unnaturally. The Pride Lands were tensed under the rising sun, a golden haze shimmering over the plains. Kion stood atop Pride Rock, eyes scanning the horizon, sensing something amiss. Behind him, the Lion Guard readied themselves. Fuli flexed her claws. Beshte planted his feet firmly. Bunga's usual grin was tempered by worry, and Ono circled above, wings beating fast. Shadows had been stirring at the edges of the land, moving like living smoke, testing courage. Kion's roar stirred within him, pulsing with warning. From the far plains, herds scattered in chaotic lines, animals' instincts faltering under the invisible threat. The Lion Guard moved forward, silent but united. A low growl rolled across the ground as twisted shadow forms emerged, mirroring the Pride's own. Fuli struck first, weaving through them with blinding speed. Beshte barreled through clusters, scattering dark shapes. Bunga bounced unpredictably, confusing enemies, while Ono guided their movements from above. Kion roared, a golden pulse, pushing shadows back temporarily. The largest shadow beast emerged from the trees, eyes glowing with cruel intelligence. Its steps burned the earth, leaving charred patches. Kion realized instinct and power alone wouldn't be enough. Retreat was impossible. This battle required unity, courage, and strategy. The Lion God understood without words. They would fight as one. They struck together, Fuli creating paths, Beshte anchoring the ground, Bunga distracting the enemies, Ono orchestrating movement, and Kion guiding with the roar in harmony with their courage. The beast sent tendrils of darkness sweeping outward. Kion focused not on destroying, but on protecting. He directed the roar with precision, creating safe zones for animals, stabilizing the land. Shadows faltered. The beast roared in frustration, but the Lion Guard pressed forward, wave after wave of darkness meeting coordinated resistance. Slowly, the shadow forces began to unravel, collapsing under the unity and courage of the Pride Land's guardians. Finally, the largest shadow beast faltered. The roar, combined with the Lion Guard's steadfast courage, illuminated the plains. Darkness peeled away, dissolving into harmless sparks. Silence fell. Life returned gradually. Grass lifted, rivers shimmered, and animals emerged from hiding, inspired by the courage and loyalty of their protectors. Kion looked at his friends, pride and relief in his eyes. The Pride Lands were safe, for now, not just because darkness had been defeated, but because courage, friendship, and unity had endured. The Lion Guard had proven that hope, guided by loyalty and bravery, could withstand even the fiercest threats. Together, they walked back to Pride Rock. Guardians, not just of land, but of harmony itself. Ready to face whatever came next. The first light of morning barely touched the Pride Lands before the ground trembled again. Kion felt it through his paws as he stood beside the river, exhaustion still heavy in his muscles. The water rippled in uneven circles, reflecting a sky that refused to brighten fully. Around him, the Lion Guard caught their breath, but none of them relaxed. They all felt it. The shadows had not retreated in defeat. They were gathering, pulling back like a tide, preparing to crash harder than before. Ono lifted into the air, wings slicing through the cold morning breeze. His sharp eyes scanned the horizon, and what he saw made his heart pound. A dark line stretched across the plains, thicker than any before, rolling forward like a living storm. He swooped down fast. "They're coming," he called, voice tight. "All of them." Kion's chest tightened, but his gaze steadied. This was it. The final stand Rafiki had warned about without ever saying the words. He looked at his friends. Fuli's stance was low and ready, her eyes blazing with fierce focus. Beshte planted his feet, determination etched into every line of his massive form. Bunga bounced once, nerves crackling into courage. Ono landed beside them, feathers ruffled, but resolve unbroken. "We hold them here," Kion said quietly. "If they pass this river, the heart of the Pride Lands falls." No one argued. They didn't need to. The bond between them was stronger than fear. The shadows struck like a breaking wave. Dozens, no, hundreds of dark forms rushed forward, screeching and clawing. The lion guard met them head-on. Fuli became a streak of gold, darting through gaps, striking with perfect precision. Bunga spun and leapt, fearless, disrupting the enemy's rhythm. Beshte charged with earth-shaking force, scattering shadows with every step. Ono's voice rang above the chaos, guiding their movements, warning of flanks and surges. Kion stood at the center, feeling the roar burning inside him. Not wild, not strained, but steady. He remembered Rafiki's words, the lessons of balance. Power alone would not win this. He closed his eyes for a heartbeat, listening to the land. Beneath the chaos, he felt it. The Pride Lands were still fighting. Roots clung to soil. Water pushed against corruption. Life refused to surrender. The towering shadow beast rose behind the wave, larger than ever, its body pulsing with stolen fear. Its eyes locked onto Kion. The air grew heavy as it stepped forward, and with each step, the ground darkened. Kion roared. But this roar was different. Golden light burst outward, not as a blast of destruction, but as a wave of warmth. It spread through the battlefield, touching his friends first. Fuli felt her speed sharpen. Beshte felt his strength deepen. Bunga's fear burned away into pure bravery. Ono's vision cleared like the sky after a storm. The light continued outward, reaching the animals hiding nearby. Hearts steadied. Panic faded. The shadow beast recoiled, its form flickering. The lion guard pressed forward together. They didn't fight as 5 warriors. They moved as one living force. Fuli carved paths. Beshte held the line. Bunga disrupted every counterattack. Ono orchestrated their flow from above, and Kion guided the rhythm, his roar pulsing in harmony with their courage. The beast roared back, sending tendrils of darkness crashing toward them. Kion stepped into it, meeting shadow with light. The collision shook the plains. For a moment, everything froze. Light and darkness locked in silent struggle. Kion felt doubt claw at him, whispering that he wasn't strong enough, that this enemy was endless. Then he felt his friends, Fuli's unwavering trust, Beshte's steady loyalty, Bunga's fearless heart, Ono's sharp faith, and beyond them, the Pride Lands, every creature, every tree, every breath, standing with him. Kion roared again, pouring not just power, but belief into the sound. The golden light surged. The shadow beast screamed, its massive form cracking like brittle stone. Darkness peeled away in sheets, dissolving into sparks that faded harmlessly into the air. The tendrils snapped. The wave of shadows collapsed, unraveling into nothing. With one final echoing cry, the beast shattered completely. Silence fell. Real silence. The Kion filled with wind and distant birds and the gentle rush of water. Color returned to the plains in a rolling bloom. Grass lifted. Trees straightened. The river cleared, shining under a sky finally free of haze. The lion guard stood in the quiet aftermath, breathing hard, eyes wide. Slowly, animals emerged from hiding. One by one, they approached, not in fear, but in gratitude. The Pride Lands were alive, wounded, but healing. Kion looked at his friends, and a tired smile spread across his face. They hadn't just stopped the darkness. They had reminded the land and themselves what balance truly meant. Fuli bumped his shoulder lightly. Bunga laughed, the sound bright and real again. Beshte exhaled in relief. Ono spread his wings, watching the sun rise fully at last. Kion climbed a small ridge overlooking the plains. The morning light warmed his fur as he lifted his head. His final roar rolled across the Pride Lands. Not a call to battle, but a promise. The circle of life endured, and as long as courage stood beside friendship, no shadow would ever claim it. The Lion Guard turned toward home together. Guardians, not just of the land, but of the hope that would always rise with the sun. The Pride Lands seemed calm at first light, but Kion could feel the tension beneath the surface. The earth hummed faintly, as if holding its breath. He stood atop Pride Rock, eyes scanning every ridge and valley, muscles taut, senses alert. Fuli padded beside him, her claws clicking lightly on the stone, every nerve ready to spring into action. Beshte's massive shoulders shifted as he planted his weight firmly, grounding the group with his steady presence. Bunga twitched nervously, a forced grin masking the tight coil of worry inside. Above them, Ono circled the sky, wings slicing the cold morning air, eyes sharp for any hint of danger, although the shadows had been driven back. Kion felt something lingering, a tremor in the rhythm of the land, subtle but unmistakable. It was not a roar or a movement, but a sense, a warning, the kind that pressed against the edges of perception. The animals of the Pride Lands moved cautiously below, ears flicking and tails stiff, sensing the same unease. Kion knew instinct alone could not guide them this time. He needed to understand, to see the enemy not just with eyes, but with the pulse of the circle of life itself. A ripple ran through the air near the far cliffs, causing grass to quiver and leaves to shiver. The ground hummed beneath their paws, faint vibrations like distant drums. From the cliffs emerged patterns of glowing light, swirling across the rocks in unnatural shapes that twisted and bent the horizon. Kion felt the roar stir within him. Restless and uncertain, he turned to his friends. "This is different," he sighed softly. "The shadows we faced before. This is something older, something tied to the imbalance left behind." They approached cautiously, paws crunching on dry stone and sparse grass, every sense alert. The closer they came, the stronger the glow became. Shapes solidified from the light, forming creatures that seemed both familiar and impossible animals from memory, yet warped and shimmering, edges flickering like flame. They did not move aggressively, but their presence warped reality itself. The wind shifted unpredictably, and the air thickened as if the cliffs were breathing. Bunga froze, eyes wide, unsure how to move. Fuli's tail flicked as she tested her speed, ready to react at a moment's notice. Beshte's chest rose and fell slowly, grounding himself as the earth beneath trembled faintly. Ono's sharp cries echoed in the air, directing movement with precise warnings as he circled above. Kion closed his eyes for a moment, letting the roar settle. Feeling its warmth intertwine with the rhythm of the land, he realized that brute strength would not work here. The glowing creatures were not an enemy in the traditional sense. They were born of imbalance, fragments of harmony destabilized during the previous battles. Their flickering light pulsed erratically, destabilizing the cliffs and causing small landslides that threatened to crush any animals below. "This is about balance," Kion murmured. "Not fighting, guiding." He stepped forward, exhaling slowly, and directed the roar in a controlled, golden wave. It moved outward, connecting with the shimmering creatures, stabilizing their form. The cliffside pulsed with light, and the fractured patterns began to smooth. The Lion Guard moved in perfect synchronization. Fuli ran along the perimeter, directing the flow and striking gently where instability threatened. Beshte planted his massive feet firmly, anchoring the shaking ground. Bunga dotted in between patches of unstable energy, using agility to diffuse dangerous pulses. Ono circled above, mapping the safest rhythm and guiding the team with sharp, coordinated calls. The glowing creatures responded, their flickering edges calming as the controlled roar combined with the Lion Guard's precision. The cliffs themselves seemed to breathe again, the unnatural pulses fading into a steady, natural rhythm. The air cleared, and the animals below began to stir with cautious optimism. Life was returning to the valleys and hills, guided by the steady hands of guardians who understood not just strength, but responsibility. Yet Kion felt a whisper of warning. Even as the cliffs stabilized, faint ripples of imbalance lingered in the air. as if the land itself was reminding him that harmony was fragile and required constant vigilance. He nodded to his friends. "We've restored part of the balance," he said, "but this is just one step. Darkness doesn't always come roaring. Sometimes it creeps, and we must be ready." The Lion Guard gathered near the base of the cliffs, catching their breath. The sunlight bathed them in warm gold, illuminating the determination in their eyes. They had faced not just shadows, but the consequences of imbalance itself, and survived. The Pride lands, wounded but resilient, were slowly healing under their protection. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the plains, Kion lifted his head and let the roar roll across the land. This time, it was not a roar of warning or attack. It was a promise that the Pride lands would endure. That courage, friendship, and unity could hold back even the most insidious threats. Below them, animals emerged from hiding, guided by instinct and newfound hope. Streams shimmered with clear water, grass lifted with life, and even the trees seemed to stretch taller in response to the energy flowing from the Lion Guard. Kion watched them move, understanding fully that balance was not a destination but a journey, a constant effort to protect, nurture, and guide the circle of life. The Lion Guard turned toward Pride Rock, walking side by side, each member reflecting on the lessons learned. Kion felt the roar settle peacefully in his chest, a steady rhythm of courage and vigilance. The Pride lands had survived yet another trial, but the journey was ongoing. They would continue to protect, continue to fight, and continue to ensure that harmony endured, because the circle of life depended not on luck, but on the guardians willing to stand against the shadows, no matter how subtle or pervasive they might become. And as night fell, the stars sparkled brighter than before, each one a silent testament to the resilience of life, the strength of unity, and the eternal vigilance of the Lion Guard.